Hello, everybody who's out there, hopefully, and I'm hoping that we're gaining viewers and trying to keep an eye on everything as well. I am Sarah Jameson, better known as Helena Handbag, and this is our live script reading of the wonderful, campy, classic 1985 movie Clue, where we're doing this to fundraise for MTUG. I've posted the donation link as well, so y'all just click on that, donate. We're already $300 and some change up. We're trying to get to 500. I would love to get to 500, but by the first act break. And then we can be hopefully exceeding that goal is what I'm trying to say. So some of us are in costume, some of us aren't. We're just all doing this just to have fun. That's all I can really say. So I'm gonna start playing our main title music, and I'm gonna start bringing people on one by one, so they can say hey real quick. All right, so I'm gonna start with Colonel Mustard, played by Cadaver Dadio.
Hey, gang.
All right. So, Ginger Fahrenheit, playing the role of Miss Scarlet.
Hello.
Okay. And I'm losing things because of chat. Minimize that. Mr. Green, played by the wonderful Luke Seckington.
Hey there, demons. It's me, your boy.
Mrs. White, played by the fantastic Liz Davidson.
Hello, darling.
Mrs. Peacock, played by the one and only Miss Kelsi Davis.
Hello.
Professor Plum, played by the fantastic Sean Watson.
Hello, friends and enemies.
And in several roles tonight, but starting with the cook, we have Mona Chase.
Hey!
And because it's a script reading and we have to have scene transitions and everything and descriptions read for us, I have enlisted the help of my fiance, Miss Brianna Cardoza, who is coming on now. And I've got one more person who I'm going to unmute now. And that's the fantastic Yvette, played by the one and only Miss Samantha Madison. So everybody's here. Yay. Okay, so let me make sure that we are all good to go. Da, 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 da. All right, so we ready?
Yeah.
Ready.
All right, Brianna, take it away.
All right. Exterior, Wadsworth's car, twilight. Wadsworth's car travels through the wind of an oncoming storm. It pulls up to the gate of the Hill House. Hill House is a large, imposing mansion looking very New England. Wadsworth takes out the key and unlocks the gate. He drives the car up to the front door. Exterior, Hill House, front door. Wadsworth exits the car holding a bag and looking at two barking dogs. The dogs approach Wadsworth, then jump. Wadsworth quickly pulls out a beef bone out of the bag and hurls it to them. The dogs trot away to gnaw on the bone as Wadsworth rolls up the bag. Wadsworth clenches their chain so it won't allow them to reach the door. He steps towards the door and sniffs. Wadsworth pauses and checks the bottom of his feet. Dog crap. He looks in disgust at the dogs, who aren't bothered at all. Interior, ground floor, the hall. The hall of Hill House is remarkable. Elegant but not gaudy, it is furnished in dark wood and brass with crystal chandeliers. There are several doors on each side of the hall and 3 at the end. To the left, lounge and dining room. To the right, study, library, and billiard room. To the end, conservatory, ballroom, bathroom, and kitchen. The stairs are located to the right. By the staircase is the door to the basement steps. We hear shake, rattle, and roll in the background. Wadsworth opens the front door of Hill House and wipes off his foot. He enters and hangs up his coat. New England, 1954. Wadsworth steps briskly down the hall and steps towards the library. Interior, ground floor, library. The library is a somewhat more comfortable room than the hall, composed of dark colors. All of the walls are covered with books with the exception of one wall, a window. Yvette, a young and rather jiggly French maid, is polishing a glass. The music is much louder. Wadsworth enters and turns off the record player. The music stops. He speaks to the maid in a proper English accent.
Is everything ready?
She replies in a French accent.
Oui, monsieur.
You have your instructions.
Yvette nods. Wadsworth exits. Yvette sniffs the air and then examines the bottom of her shoes. Interior, ground floor, kitchen. The kitchen is white tile, narrow. There's a meat freezer to the right. A counter leads off to the left. Mrs. Ho, the cook, is sharpening a knife. Joseph McCarthy is speaking on the television in the background. Wadsworth enters.
Is everything all right, Mrs. Ho?
Dinner will be ready at 7:30.
The doorbell rings. Wadsworth exits the kitchen. Exterior, Hill House, front door, night. A man is standing by the front door being growled at by the dogs. He is not comfortable. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Wadsworth opens the door.
Good evening.
Good evening. I don't know if,
Yes, indeed, sir, you are expected, Colonel. May I take your coat? It is Colonel Mustard, isn't it?
No, that's not my name. My name is Colonel,
Excuse me, sir, but tonight you may feel well obliged to my employer for the use of an alias.
Mustard sniffs around and checks his shoe as Wadsworth hangs his coat. The pair starts across the hall.
And, who are you, sir?
I'm Wadsworth, sir, the butler.
Interior, ground floor, library. Yvette is present.
Yvette, will you attend to the Colonel and give him anything he requires within reason? That is...
Wadsworth exits, closing the doors behind him. The doors have books on the back of them, so they look like part of the wall.
Oh, Wadsworth, I was...
Mustard turns to discover the doors have disappeared. The bell rings. Exterior, Hill House, front door. A woman dressed in black stands here. Wadsworth opens the door.
Do come in, Matt. Oops, sorry, babe. Go ahead.
You're fine. Interior, ground floor, the hall.
Do come in, madam. You are expected.
Do you know who I am?
Oh, only that you are to be known as Mrs. White.
Yes, it said so in the letter. But why?
Wadsworth removes her coat with a brilliantly white inside. Mrs. White sniffs and checks her shoe. Interior, ground floor, the library. Yvette and Colonel Mustard are here. Mustard is sipping cognac and glancing at Yvette. The doors open, the left one into Colonel Mustard.
Ah, may I introduce you? Mrs. White, this is Yvette the maid. I see you know each other.
Hello.
Hello.
Exterior, roadside. A slim woman is standing by a broken down car. An owl can be heard. She hits the car, obviously frustrated. Thunder roars in the distance. The woman sees headlights a short way away. She smooths her dress. As the car nears, she bends over the engine and lifts the leg. The car screeches to a halt just past her and backs up. The woman goes to the car and peers in.
Want a lift?
Yes, please.
She gets in. Interior, man's car.
Oh, it's me.
Yeah.
Hey.
I told you she was gonna fuck up.
Shut up. Thanks, I'm late for a dinner date.
Me too. Where are you going?
The woman pulls out a sheet of paper.
Let's see. Hill House off Route 41.
Wait a minute. Let me look at that. That's where I'm going. I got a letter like this.
They both look disturbed. Exterior, car. The rain has started. The windshield wipers start as the car pulls away. Interior, ground floor, library. We see a middle-aged woman.
And this is Mrs. Peacock.
How do you do?
Hello.
Yvette, will you go and check the dinner will be ready as soon as all the guests have arrived?
Yvette nods. Mrs. Peacock stares disapprovingly at Yvette's exposed cleavage. Yvette exits the library. The doorbell rings. Exterior, Hill House, front door. It is now raining hard. A man is standing at the door, much like Colonel Mustard was. The dogs, of course, are growling. Wadsworth opens the door.
Is this the right address to meet Mr. Body?
Oh, you must be Mr. Green.
Yes.
Sit!
Mr. Green frantically sits on a bench by the door.
No, not you, sir.
Mr. Green sheepishly gets up and enters the house. Interior, man's car.
Should be just off there.
Exterior, Hill House, view from front gate. There's nothing there. Okay. Interior, man's car.
That must be it.
Exterior Hill House, view from front gate. Lightning crashes, illuminating the house. Interior, man's car.
Why is the car stopped?
It's frightened.
Exterior Hill House, front gate. The car is started again. It rolls up to the driveway. Interior, ground floor, library. Lightning crashes, making Mr. Green gulp. Exterior Hill House, front driveway. The man and the woman exit their car and run for the front door. The man shields the woman from the now heavy rain.
What a godforsaken place.
He squeezes one of the woman's buttocks. She shakes his hands off, looking disgusted. The door opens, revealing Wadsworth.
Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet, I didn't realize you were acquainted.
Weren't.
They enter. Interior, ground floor, library. The doors open to reveal Professor Plum and Mrs. Scarlet.
May I present Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet?
Nods all around. Plum and Scarlet receive wine glasses from Yvette, whom Plum eyes. Professor Plum clinks glasses with Miss Scarlet, who looks annoyed.
Of course, since you've each been addressed by a pseudonym, you'll realize that nobody here is being addressed by their real name.
Guests glance around suspiciously. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Mrs. Ho bangs a bong?
Gong. It's a misspelling, wow.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's even better.
I'm here for that. God. Mrs. Ho bangs a gong once, fiercely. Interior library. The gong is heard a second time. Mr. Green jumps at the sound, dumping his champagne on Mr. Peacock. Mrs. Peacock.
These spelling errors.
Wow.
I'm seeing them as I'm going. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're
me,
good.
Me too. Dinner.
Sorry, I'm a little accident prone.
Interior, ground floor, the hall. The guests cross to the dining room. Interior, ground floor, dining room. The dining room is elegant, in similar decor to the hall, but it is somewhat more comfortable. However, the room is still small. At one end, there is a door and a metal partition, both leading to the kitchen. The guests file in.
You'll find your names beside your places. Please be seated.
The guests, except for Colonel Mustard, find their places and sit. Wadsworth sets Miss Scarlet's drink on the table to her pleasure.
Is this place for you?
Oh, no, indeed, sir. I'm merely a humble butler.
And what exactly do you do?
I buttle, sir.
Which means what?
The butler is head of the kitchen and dining room. I keep everything tidy. That's all.
Well, what's this all about, butler? This dinner party?
Ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and die.
Die?
Merely quoting, sir, from Alfred Lord Tennyson.
I would prefer Kipling myself. The female of the species is more deadly than the male. You like Kipling, Miss Scarlet?
Sure, I'll eat anything.
Yvette enters carrying a tray.
Shark's fin soup, madame?
So is this for our host?
No, sir, for the seventh guest, Mr. Body.
I thought Mr. Body was our host.
The guests all concur.
So who is our host, Mr. Wadsworth?
Well, I want to start while it's hot.
Oh, now shouldn't we wait for the other guest?
I will keep something warm for him.
What did you have in mind, dear?
Silence. Professor Plum slurps soup from his spoon. Mrs. White disapproves and then does the same. Mustard, Scarlet, and Green stare at them. Spoons poised near mouths. They do it again. Silence.
Well, someone's got to break the ice, and it might as well be me. I mean, I'm used to being a hostess. It's part of my husband's work, and it's always difficult when a group of new friends meet together for the first time to get acquainted. So I'm perfectly prepared to start the ball rolling. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, what I'm doing here, or what this place is about, but I am determined to enjoy myself, and I'm very intrigued. And oh my, this soup's delicious, isn't it?
Everyone sits, bewildered.
You say you are used to being a hostess as part of your husband's work.
Yes, it's an integral part of your life when you're the wife of but I forgot we're not supposed to say who we really are. Though heavens to Betsy, I don't know why.
Don't you?
I know who you are.
Aren't you going to tell us?
How do you know who I am?
I work in Washington too.
So you're a politician's wife?
Yes, I am.
Well, come on then. Who's your husband?
Suddenly, Wadsworth opens the door from the kitchen.
So, what does your husband do?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Well, he just lies around on his back all day.
Like hard work to me.
Yvette in the kitchen opens the partition suddenly. The noise coincides with a crash of thunder. Mr. Green, jumpy as ever, spills his drink again, this time on Miss Scarlet.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I'm a little accident prone.
He starts to wipe off her upper chest.
Hey, watch it.
He stops. Yvette starts serving food. Yvette starts serving food.
Oh, hold on, she's muted. Hold on.
Oh,
Excusez-moi.
There we go.
I guess start eating.
This is one of my favorite recipes.
I know, madam.
So, what do you do in Washington, Mr. Green?
No.
Come on, what do you do? I mean, how are we to get acquainted if we don't say anything about ourselves?
Perhaps he doesn't want to get acquainted with you.
Well, I'm sure I don't know, but if I wasn't trying to keep the conversation going, then we would just be sitting here in an embarrassed silence.
Are you afraid of silence, Miss Peacock?
Yes! What? No! Why?
Oh, it just seems to me that you seem to suffer from what we call pressure of speech.
Who's we? Are you a shrink?
I do know a little about the psychological sciences, yes.
Are you a doctor?
I am, but I don't practice.
Practice makes perfect. I think most men need a little practice, don't you, Mrs. Peacock?
So, what do you do, Professor?
I work for UNO, the United Nations organization.
Another politician, Jesus.
No. I work for a branch of the UNO, the WHO, the World Health Organization.
Well, what is your special area of concern?
Family planning. What about you, Colonel? Are you a real colonel?
I am, sir.
You're not going to mention the coincidence that you also live in Washington, D.C.?
How did you know that? Have we met before?
I've certainly seen you before, although you may not have seen me.
So, Miss Scarlet, does this mean that you live in Washington too?
Sure do.
Does anyone here not live in Washington, D.C.?
I don't.
Yes, but you work for the United Nations. That's a government job. And the rest of us all live in a government town. Anyone here not earn their living from the government in one way or another?
Colonel Mustard stands suddenly.
Wadsworth, where's our host and why have we been brought here?
The doorbell rings. Wadsworth exits. We hear the door opening and Wadsworth speaks.
Ah, good evening. You are eagerly awaited.
You're locking me in? I'll take the key.
Over my dead body, sir. May I take your bag?
No, I'll leave it here till I need it.
It contains evidence, I presume?
Surprises, my friend. That's what it contains. Surprises.
Wadsworth enters the dining room, followed by the man.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Mr. Body?
What are they all doing here?
Eating dinner. Do sit down, Mr. Body.
Thanks.
Yvette starts to serve him.
No, you can take that away, honey.
Miss Peacock
Look.
hits the table.
Look, I demand to know what's going on. Now, why have we all been dragged up to this horrible place?
Well, I believe we all received a letter. My letter says, it will be to your advantage to be present on this date because Mr. Body will bring to an end a certain long-standing confidential and painful. It is signed a friend.
I received a similar letter.
So did we, didn't we?
I also received a letter.
Go on.
You got more.
There's a stage reading there.
Oh, well, I see it. Yvette starts to serve him again.
Thanks. No thanks, Yvette. I just ate.
Now, how do you know her name?
We know each other.
Puts his hand up Yvette's short skirt.
Don't we, dear?
She recoils.
Forgive my curiosity, Mr. Body, but did your letter say the same thing?
No.
I see. Can I interest any of you in fruit or dessert?
No response.
In that case, may I suggest we adjourn to the study for coffee and brandy, at which point I believe our unknown host will reveal his intentions.
Interior, ground floor, the study. The study is by far the most comfortable room we've seen so far. It is decorated in subdued tan colors. There are several couches, a bookshelf, a table with drinks, and a desk. The guests enter and look around for their host.
Well, there's no one here.
Please help yourself to brandy and be seated.
Wadsworth goes to the desk and takes out a manila envelope. It reads, "For Wadsworth, open after dinner."
Mind if I smoke?
Professor Plum, seated next to Miss Scarlet, lights her cigarette. Wadsworth opens the envelope. He peruses the contents.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm instructed to tell you all what you all have in common with each other. Unless you would care to do the honors, Mr. Body.
Why indeed? They knew who I am?
I don't think so. You've never identified yourself to them, I believe.
Mr. Body stands suddenly.
It's a hoax. I suggest we all leave.
He takes off out the study door.
I'm sorry, sir. You cannot leave this house.
Interior, ground floor, the hall. Mr. Body goes to the front door. Wadsworth follows and is greeted by the other followed by the other guests.
No? Well, who's going to stop me?
There's no way out.
Mr. Body tries the front door. It's locked.
All the windows have bars. All the doors are locked.
This is an outrage. You can't hold us prisoner.
The guests in confusion agree.
Yeah!
Oh, God. Damn it. I lost my place. Hold on. It just decided to read.
We're all angrily agreeing.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen,
I concur.
please return to the study. Everything will be explained.
The guests file unhappily back into the study. Mr. Body walks past Wadsworth toward the rear of the hall.
You too, Mr. Body.
Body starts running.
Other way.
He pursues Mr. Body. Interior, ground floor conservatory. The conservatory is humid with plants all around. 3 of the walls are brick, the 4th is glass, leading to the outside. The rain can be heard and seen against the glass. Mr. Body runs in, he picks up a brick and prepares to throw it through the glass. Wadsworth enters.
You can't get out that way.
Why not? It's only glass.
Suddenly, a vicious Doberman jumps at the glass, barking and snarling. Body drops the brick. Interior, ground floor, the study. The guests are already present. Wadsworth and Mr. Body enter. Wadsworth takes up his envelope again.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all have one thing in common. You're all being blackmailed. For some considerable time, all of you have been paying what you can afford, and in some cases more than you can afford it to someone who threatens to expose you, and none of you know who's blackmailing you, do you?
Please, I've never heard anything so ridiculous. I mean, nobody could blackmail me. My life is an open book. I have never done anything wrong.
Anybody else wish to deny it?
Nope.
Brie, you got a stage direction.
Oh, wait, where am I? No,
anyone else wish to deny it? And the guests are looking at each other, but no one responds.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I missed that one. The guests look at each other, but no one responds.
Very well. As everyone here is in the same boat, there's no harm in my revealing some details, and my instructions are to do so. Thank you, Yvette.
The maid, so dismissed, leaves. Mr. Body's eyes follow her out.
Don't you think you might spare us this humiliation?
I'm sorry. Professor Plum, you were once a professor of psychiatry, specializing in helping paranoid and homicidal lunatics suffering from delusions of grandeur.
Yes, but now I work for the United Nations.
So you're working. His license to practice has been lifted, correct?
Why? What did he do?
You know what doctors aren't allowed to do with their lady patients?
Yeah?
Well, he did.
Oh, how disgusting!
Are you making moral judgments, Mrs. Peacock? How then do you justify taking bribes in return for delivering your husband's Senator Peacock's vote to certain lobbyists?
My husband is a paid consultant. There is nothing wrong with that.
Not if it's publicly declared, perhaps. But if the payment is delivered by slipping used greenbacks in plain envelopes under the door of the men's room, how would you describe that transaction?
I'd say it stinks.
Well, how would you know? When were you in that men's room?
So it's true.
No, it's a vicious lie.
I'm sure we're all glad to hear that. But you've been paying blackmail for over a year now to keep that story out of the papers.
Well, I am willing to believe you. I, too, am being blackmailed for something I didn't do.
Me too.
And me.
Not me.
You're not being blackmailed?
Oh, I'm being blackmailed, all right, but I did what I'm being blackmailed for.
What did you do?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I run a specialized hotel and telephone service which provides gentlemen with the company of a young lady for a short while.
Oh, yeah? What's the phone number?
Mrs. Scarlet rolls her eyes.
So, how did you know Colonel Mustard works in Washington? Is he one of your clients?
Certainly not.
I was asking Miss Scarlet.
Well, you tell him it's not true.
It's not true.
Is that true?
No, it's not true.
So it is true.
A double negative.
Double negative? You mean you have photographs?
That sounds like a confession to me. In fact, the double negative has led to proof positive. I'm afraid you gave yourself away.
Are you trying to make me look stupid in front of the other guests?
You don't need any help from me, sir.
That's right.
Mustard realizes what he's just said.
But seriously, I don't see what's so clear about Colonel Mustard visiting a house of ill fame. Most soldiers do, don't they?
Oh, please.
He holds a sensitive security post in the Pentagon. And Colonel, you drive a very expensive car for someone who lives on a colonel's pay.
I came into money during the war when I lost my mommy and daddy.
Wadsworth is puzzled, but soon recovers.
Mrs. White, you've been paying our friend the blackmailer ever since your husband died under, shall we say, mysterious circumstances.
Why is that funny?
I see. That's why he was lying on his back in his coffin.
I didn't kill him.
Then why are you paying the blackmailer?
I don't want a scandal, do I? We had a very humiliating public confrontation. He was deranged, lunatic. He didn't actually seem to like me very much. He had threatened to kill me in public.
Why would he want to kill you in public?
I think she meant he threatened in public to kill her.
And that was his final word on the matter?
Being killed is pretty final, wouldn't you say?
And yet he was the one who died, not you, Mrs. White, not you.
What did he do for a living?
He was a scientist, nuclear physics.
What was he like?
He was always a rather stupidly optimistic man. I mean, I'm afraid it came as a great shock to him when he died. But he was found dead at home. His head had been cut off, and so had his, you know.
The men in the room all crossed their legs.
I had been out all evening at the movies.
Do you miss him?
Well, it's a matter of life after death. Now that he's dead, I have a life.
But he was your second husband. Your first husband also disappeared.
But that was his job. He was an illusionist.
But he never reappeared.
He wasn't a very good illusionist.
Mr. Green clears his throat and stands.
I have something to say. I'm not going to wait for Wadsworth here to unmask me. I work for the State Department, and I am a homosexual.
Wadsworth, wide-eyed, looks for Green's file. Mrs. Peacock clucks in disgust.
I feel no personal shame or guilt about this, but I must keep it a secret or I will lose my job on security grounds. Thank you.
Mr. Green sits back down next to Professor Plum, who rapidly stands and walks away.
Well, that just leaves Mr. Body.
What's your little secret?
His secret? Oh, hadn't you guessed? He's the one who's blackmailing you all.
Lightning crashes. Mr. Body looks very satisfied.
You bastard!
The guests advance on Mr. Body as he stands. Colonel Mustard challenges Mr. Body to a fight, boxing style.
Put him up!
Mr. Body steps on the Colonel's toes and pokes him in the eyes.
Gentlemen?
If you can't fight fairly, don't fight at all.
Calls me a bastard.
Mr. Green and the others try to separate them as Colonel Mustard recovers and Mr. Body goes for him. Mrs. White decides to take matters into her own hands and knees Mr. Body in the crotch.
Yeah.
Was that necessary, Mrs. White?
Wait, the police are coming.
No.
Listen.
Fuck the police.
Hey, Cam.
Where'd that come from?
It's in the
Listen,
script. What do you mean?
Oh, nice ad-lib. Listen, blackmail depends on secrecy. You've all admitted how he's been able to blackmail you. All you have to do is tell the police, he'll be convicted, and your troubles will be over.
Mr. Body stands in pain.
It's not so easy. You'll never tell the police.
Then I shall. I have evidence in my possession, and this conversation is being tape recorded.
Interior, ground floor, billiard room. Yvette is in the billiard room, drinking cognac and listening to the tape recorder that is recording.
Point of order. Tape recorders are not admissible evidence.
Interior, ground floor, the study. The study. General confusion ensues.
Ladies and gentlemen, the police will be here in about 45 minutes. Tell them the truth, and Mr. Body will be behind bars.
Mr. Body goes for the hall. Wadsworth stops them.
Where are you going this time?
I think I can help them make up their minds. Can I just get my little bag from the hall?
Body exits. Interior, ground floor, the hall. The hall. Mr. Body gets his bag from the front door. Interior, ground floor, the study. The study.
The study.
Mr. Body opens his luggage.
Who can guess what's in here, eh?
The evidence against us, no doubt.
Mr. Body chuckles. He starts handing out boxes, each with a different size and shape.
We didn't know we were meeting you tonight. Did you know you were meeting us?
Oh, yes.
What were you told? Precisely.
Merely that you were all meeting here to discuss our little financial arrangements, and if I did not appear, that Wadsworth would be informing the police about it all. So, naturally, I could hardly resist putting on an appearance.
He finishes handing out the packages. Mr. Body elbows his way to the door.
Excuse me. Well, open them.
Why not? I enjoy getting presents from strange men.
Scarlet opens her package, a candlestick.
Candlestick? What is this for?
Mrs. White opens her box and reveals a rope tied in a noose. Mr. Green takes his box in one hand and he opens it and lets the contents fall into his other hand, a bent lead pipe. Colonel Mustard opens his box and pulls out a heavy wrench. Professor Plum takes the lid off his package and looks in. He gingerly pulls out a revolver.
Nice.
Finally, the camera reveals Mrs. Peacock, who is twirling a dagger.
You gonna make it, Chase?
In your hands, each have a lethal weapon. If you denounce me to the police, you will also be exposed and humiliated. I'll see to that in court. But if one of you kills Wadsworth now...
Wadsworth's eyes widen in shock.
No one but the seven of us will ever know. He has the key to the front door, which he said could only be opened over his dead body. I suggest we take him up on that offer.
Mr. Body goes over to the light switch with deliberate ease. He closes the door to the hall and sets his drink down.
Now, the only way to avoid finding yourself on the front pages is for one of you to kill Wadsworth. Right now.
He turns the lights off. We hear noises. Someone inhales raspily. A gunshot. Something ceramic shatters. A scream. The lights go up. Mrs. Peacock, who turned on the light, drops the dagger in shock. Mr. Body is lying prone on the floor.
It's not Wadsworth.
Oh my god.
Stand back! Stand back! Give him some air!
He kneels down next to Mr. Body.
Let me see.
He checks Mr. Body for signs of life.
He's dead.
Who had the gun?
Dead.
I did.
Then you shot him.
I didn't.
Well, you had the gun. If you didn't shoot him, who did?
Mr. Body is turned over.
Nobody. Look, there's no gunshot wound. Someone tried to grab the gun from me in the dark and the gun went off. Look, the bullet broke the vase on the mantel.
Everyone rushes for the mantle simultaneously, causing confusion.
He's absolutely right. Look, there's a bullet hole here in the wall. See that?
Mr. Green grabs Professor Plum by the lapels.
How did he die?
I don't know.
He shoves him away.
I'm not a forensic expert.
Well, one of us must have killed him.
Well, I didn't do it.
I need a drink.
She goes to the door and gets Mr. Body's cognac. She sips.
Maybe he was poisoned.
Mr. Peacock drops the glass in revulsion and starts to scream. She won't stop. Mr. Green takes her to the sofa, offering words of comfort.
Come on.
She sits but won't stop screaming. Mr. Green slaps her.
I had to stop her from screaming.
Was the brandy poisoned?
I don't know.
Scarlet picks up the glass. All the cognac has spilled out.
Like we'll never know.
Unless she dies too.
They all rush over to scrutinize Mrs. Peacock. A scream erupts from the other room. Guests gasp. They run from the study into the hall. Interior, ground floor, the hall. The guests run to the door of the billiard room. Mr. Green tries it.
It's locked.
Open up!
It must be the murderer.
Why would he scream?
He must have a victim in there. Oh my God, Yvette!
Oh my God!
The door is open. Interior, ground floor, billiard room. The guests pour in.
You're alive.
No thanks to you.
What do you mean?
You locked me up with a murderer, you idiot.
So the murder is in this room.
Marie.
Where?
Where? Here.
Mr. Green looks behind the door.
We're all looking at him. Or else, it's what Mrs. White said in this study. One of you is the killer.
How did you know we said that?
I was listening.
But why were you screaming in here all by yourself?
Because I'm frightened. Me too. I also drink the cognac. Mon Dieu. I can't stay in here by myself.
Miss Scarlet and Colonel Mustard give it to Yvette.
Come back to the study with us.
With the murderer?
Colonel Mustard shakes his wrench.
There is safety in numbers, my dear.
The guests leave the room. After they are gone, Wadsworth takes the tape off the spools. Interior, ground floor, the study.
Is there no indication of how he died?
No.
This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. It's not what I intended. Oh my God.
Not what you intended?
So you're not the butler.
I'm not the butler, but I am a butler. In fact, I was his butler.
So if he told you to invite all of us to his house, why did he arrive late?
I invited you. In fact, I wrote the letters. It was all my idea.
Wait a minute. I don't understand. Why did you invite us here to meet your late employer? Were you assisting him to blackmail us?
Certainly not.
I think you had better explain.
Please sit down, everyone.
Everyone sits but Mr. Green. He searches for a spot, but no one gives it to him. He ends up leaning against a serving table.
When I said that I was Mr. Body's butler, this was both true and misleading. I was once his butler, but it was not his untimely death this evening that brought my employment with him to an end.
When did it come to an end?
When my wife decided to end her life, she too was being blackmailed by this odious man who now lies dead before us. He hated my wife for the same reason that he American.
Mr. Green's serving table gives way, landing him and several pieces of crystal on the floor.
Sorry.
For some reason, he felt that it was inappropriate for a senator to have a corrupt wife, for a doctor to take advantage of his patients, for a wife to emasculate her husband, and so forth.
He had it coming.
But this is ridiculous. If he was such a patriotic American, why didn't he just report us to the authorities?
He decided to put his information to good use and make a little money out of it. What could be more American than that?
Well, good
Several
point.
nods.
Well, that's
And what was your role in all this?
I was a victim too. At least my wife was. She had friends who were socialists.
And muttering from several guests, the most vocal of whom is Mrs. Peacock.
We all make mistakes.
Mrs. White pulls a tissue from her bra and gives it to him.
But Mr. Body threatened to give my wife's name to the House Un-American Activities Committee unless she named them. She refused, and so he blackmailed her. We had no money, and the price of his silence was that we worked for him for nothing. We were slaves. Well, to make a long story short,
Too late.
the suicide of my wife preyed on my mind and created a sense of injustice in me. I resolved to put Mr. Body behind bars. It seemed the best way to do it, and to free all of you from the same burden of blackmail was to get everyone face to face, confront Mr. Body with his crimes, and then turn him over to the police.
So everything is explained.
Nothing's explained. We still don't know who killed him.
Well, the point is we've got to find out in the next 39 minutes before the police arrive.
My God, we can't have them here now.
But how can we possibly find out which of you did it?
What do you mean, which of you did it?
Well, I didn't do it.
Well, one of us did. We all had the opportunity. We all had a motive.
Great. We'll all go to the chair.
Maybe it wasn't one of us.
Well, who else could it have been?
Who else is in this house?
Only the cook. The cook!
Interior, ground floor, the hall. The party runs from the study to the kitchen. Interior, ground floor, kitchen. They all get stuck in the door, except for Mr. Green. He steps into the kitchen and looks around.
Well, she's not here.
The door to the freezer starts open. Mrs. Scarlet screams. The cook's body tumbles out into Mr. Green's arms. She has a dagger sticking out of her back. Mrs. Ho was not and is not a light woman. He is having difficulty holding her.
I didn't do it.
Rude. I lost weight.
Somebody help me, please. Somebody help me, please.
Several guests go to help. One of them reaches for the knife.
Don't touch it. That's evidence.
Not for us. We have to find out who did this. We can't take fingerprints.
I think you'd better explain yourself, Wadsworth.
Me? Why me?
Who would want to kill the cook?
There wasn't that bad.
How can you make jokes at a time like this?
My defense mechanism.
Some defense. If I was the killer, I'd kill you next.
Oh.
Several guests look shocked.
Oh.
Uncomfortable silence.
Sorry.
Not me. It is her.
He points at Mrs. White.
I've admitted nothing.
Well, you paid the blackmail. How many husbands have you had?
Mine or other women's?
Yours?
5.
5.
Yes, just the 5. Husbands should be like Kleenex. Soft, strong, and disposable.
You lure them into their deaths like a spider with flies.
Flies are where men are most vulnerable.
Right!
Again, he realizes what he just said.
Well, if it wasn't you, then who was it? Who had the dagger anyway? It was you, Miss Peacock, wasn't it?
Yes, but I put it down.
Where?
In the study.
When?
I don't know. Before I fainted? After I fainted? I don't know. But any of you could have picked it up.
Look, I suggest we take the cook's body into the study.
Why?
I'm the butler. I like to keep the kitchen tidy.
Interior, ground floor, the study. The camera faces the door that leads from the study to the hall. The men are carrying the cook's body into the study, effectively blocking off the women's view. Mr. Plum drops Mrs. Ho and points.
Look!
What?
The body's gone!
Mrs.
What
Ho
are
is
you-
dropped.
What?
What are you all staring at?
Nothing.
Well, who's there?
Nobody.
Nobody. No body. That's what we mean. Mr. Body's body. It's gone.
Maybe he wasn't dead.
He was.
You should have made sure.
How? By cutting his head off, I suppose.
That wasn't called for.
Where is he?
We better look for him.
They look around.
Well, he couldn't have been dead.
He was. At least I thought he was. But what difference does it make now?
It makes quite a difference to him. Maybe there is life after death.
Life after death is as improbable as sex after marriage.
Maybe Mr. Body killed the cook.
Yes!
Yes!
How?
Mr. Green is at a loss.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to, is there a little girl's room?
Oui, madame.
No, I just want to powder my nose. Thank you.
Yvette is bewildered. Mrs. Peacock steps over Mrs. Ho's corpse into the hall. Miss Scarlet, wandering around, picks up something.
What's this, Wadsworth?
I'm afraid those are the negatives to which Colonel Mustard earlier referred.
Mr. Mustard
Oh
goes
my
for
God.
them.
Were you planning?
Oh my God.
Were you planning to blackmail him, I can't read. Mr. Wadsworth?
Certainly not. I'd obtained them for the Colonel, and I was going to give them back as soon as Mr. Body was unmasked.
Would you like to see these, Yvette? They might shock you.
No, merci. I am a lady.
Oh, how would you know what kind of pictures these are if you're such a lady?
What sort of pictures are they?
They are my pictures and I'd like them back, please.
No, I'm afraid there's something in them that concerns me too.
Professor Plum snatches the pictures and holds them up to the light.
Let me see.
Oh my. Nobody can get into that position.
Sure they can. Let me show you.
Plum starts to
Get off
demonstrate
me!
Mrs. White on the couch.
Get off!
Interior, ground floor, hall, rear. Mrs. Peacock opens the door to the bathroom. She screams. Mr. Body's body falls out and lands in her outstretched arms. He is almost certainly dead now. His head is bloody. The party runs out to help her.
Mr. Body!
He's attacking her.
They pull the corpse off Mrs. Peacock.
Well, he's dead.
Mr. Body, dead. Again.
Oh my God!
She's going to faint.
Somebody catch her!
Wadsworth goes behind Mrs. Peacock, encircles her with his arms.
I'll catch you. Fall into my arms.
She slips right through.
Sorry.
Well, Mr. Green, you've got blood on your hands.
I didn't do it.
He's got new injuries.
He picks up Mr. Body's arm and lets it fall again.
Well, he's certainly dead now. Why would anyone want to kill him twice?
Seems so unnecessary.
It's what we call overkill.
What we call psychotic.
As he wasn't dead before.
What's the difference?
That's what we're trying to find out. We're trying to find out who killed him and where and with what.
There's no need to shout.
I'm not shouting. All right, I am. I'm shouting.
At which point this candlestick, which had been nestled above the bathroom door, falls and hits him on the head. Wadsworth hits the floor. Interior, ground floor, the study. Mrs. Peacock has evidently recovered somewhat. The women are taking the heavier Mrs. Ho into the room. The men have the lighter Mr. Body. Guests make groans of exertion.
Oh my
Wait.
God. What was she eating? Jesus Lord.
Okay. Put the corpses on the sofa. Ladies first.
More sounds of exertion. They prop Mrs. Ho on the sofa. Wadsworth enters, holding ice to his head.
Careful, don't get blood on the sofa.
How do we do this? The dagger will go further into her back.
Tip her forward over the arm.
They do so.
Now, Mr. Body.
More sounds of exertion.
Oh.
Colonel Mustard nods. Professor Plum is stuck on the couch between the two corpses. Rather than move, he decides to make himself comfortable.
Now,
He closes Mr. Body's staring eyes.
who had access to the candlestick?
It was given to you.
Yeah, but I dropped it on the table. Anyone could have picked it up. You, him.
Wadsworth starts going around the room, picking up weapons.
Look, we still have all these weapons. The gun, the rope, the wrench, the lead pipe. Let's put them all in this cupboard and lock it. There's a homicidal maniac about.
He locks the weapons in the cupboard. Everyone states their approval.
Yeah.
What are you doing with the key?
Yeah.
Great job.
Oui.
Putting it in my pocket.
Why?
Well, to keep it safe, obviously.
That means that you can open it whenever you want.
But it also means you can't.
But what if you're the murderer?
I'm not.
But what if you are?
Well, it's got to be put somewhere. If I've got it, I know I'm safe.
But we don't know that we are.
I've got an idea. We'll throw it away.
Yes.
Agrees.
Interior, ground floor, the hall, foyer. 30. Wadsworth opens the door and prepares to throw the key out. Waiting outside the door is a man who ducks, thinking Wadsworth is about to hit him. The butler quickly recovers and pockets the key. The rest of the party runs up behind him.
Sorry. Can we help?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb the whole household, but my cards broke down out here. Just wondering if I could use your phone.
Just a moment, please.
The party huddles together and discusses it. The motorist looks rather confused.
Melon cantaloupe.
Time.
Carrots.
Group
Piece of
turns to the
carrots.
motorist.
Very well, sir. Would you care to come in?
Well, where is it?
What, the body?
The phone. Wait, what body?
Well, there's nobody. There's nobody. There's nobody in the study.
No.
No!
No.
But I think there's a phone in the lounge.
Thank you.
Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Wadsworth leads the motorist inside and indicates the phone.
Oh, that's me, shit.
That's not the line.
Yeah, when you finish
Have some more wine.
when you finish your call, perhaps you'd be good enough to wait here.
Not a question.
Certainly.
Wadsworth exits the lounge. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Wadsworth closes the door to the lounge and locks it. Colonel Mustard comes up right behind him and puts his hand on his shoulder. Wadsworth yells in fright.
Oh!
Where's the key?
In my pocket.
Not that key. The key to the cupboard with the weapons.
Do you still wish me to throw it away?
Yes!
Exterior, Hill House, front. Wadsworth takes the key from his pocket and throws it. We see it land on the cement and bounce into the foliage. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Wadsworth closes the door.
Well, what now?
Wadsworth, let me out.
No.
Why not?
We've got to know who did it. We're all in this together now.
If you leave, I'll say you killed them both.
Yeah.
Mrs. White rubs against Wadsworth.
Oh, Wadsworth, I'll make you sorry you ever started this. One day, when we're alone together.
Mrs. White, no man in his right mind would be alone together with you.
Well, I could use a drink.
Yeah.
It's Miller time.
Oh, God. Colonel Mustard goes to the study and looks in.
Just checking.
Everything all right?
Yep. 2 corpses. Everything's fine.
Interior, ground floor, library. Colonel Mustard is pouring himself a tall glass of whiskey.
Anyone else want a whiskey?
Yeah.
Colonel Mustard fills 3 other glasses at once, spilling the drink all over the table.
Shot.
All right, look. Pay attention, everybody. Wadsworth, am I right in thinking there is nobody else in the house?
No.
Then there is somebody else in this house.
No, sorry. I said no meaning yes.
No meaning yes. Look, I want a straight answer. Is there
Nothing straight
somebody
here.
else or isn't there? Yes or no?
No.
No, there is or no, there isn't.
Yes.
Mrs. White breaks her glass against the fireplace.
Please! Don't you think we should get that man out of the house before he finds out what's been going on here?
She tosses the remains of her glass into the air. It shatters on the hearth.
Yeah!
How can we throw him outside in this weather?
If we let him stay in the house, he may get suspicious.
If we throw him out, he may get even more suspicious.
If I were him, I'd be suspicious already.
Oh, hours. That guy doesn't matter. Let him stay locked up for another half an hour. The police will be here by then and there are 2 dead bodies in the state.
Well, there is still some confusion as to whether or not there's anybody else in this house.
I told you there isn't.
There isn't any confusion or there isn't anybody else.
Either. Or both.
Just give me a clear answer.
Certainly. What was the question?
Is there anybody else in the house?
No!
That's what he says, but does he know? I suggest we handle this in proper military fashion. We split up and search the house.
Split up?
Yes, we have very little time left, so we'll split up into pairs.
Pairs?
Yes.
Wait a minute. Suppose that one of us is the murderer. If we split up in pairs, whichever one is left with the killer might get killed.
Then we would have discovered who the murderer is.
But the other half of the pair would be dead.
This is war, Peacock. Casualties are inevitable. You cannot without breaking eggs. Every cook will tell you that.
But look what happened to the cook!
Colonel, are you willing to take that chance?
What choice do we have?
None.
I suppose you're right.
Bon de coeur, but it is dark upstairs, and I'm frightened of the dark. Will anyone go with me?
I will.
I will.
No, thank you.
I suggest you all draw lots for partners.
He takes long matchsticks from near the fireplace. Interior, ground floor, kitchen. Wadsworth is using a knife to cut the long matchsticks into different sizes. He prepares them in his hands so the match's lengths cannot be seen.
Ready? The two shortest together, the next two shortest together. Agreed? And I suggest the two shortest search the cellar and so on up.
The guests approach the butler. Colonel Mustard picks a matchstick. It's relatively short. Mrs. Peacock picks hers. Mustard and Peacock compare. His is longer. Miss Scarlet picks up her matchstick with a jerk. Mr. Green reaches over Miss Scarlet's shoulder and gets his matchstick. It's one of the uncut sticks. Colonel Mustard and Mr. Green compare. It's not even close. Yvette selects her stick. It's another long one. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet compare. They get a match. They match, putting them together on the ground floor. Miss Scarlet looks disgusted. Mrs. White selects hers. In the background, the party tries to match sticks. Professor Plum picks his matchstick. Wadsworth takes what is left. Mrs. White steps up to Wadsworth and pairs his matchstick. They're going up to the second floor. Professor Plum walks by Yvette and a distraught Mr. Green, who are going to the attic together. Plum matches cellar matchsticks with Mrs. Peacock.
It's you and me, honey bunch.
Oh, God.
All right, and scene. That is the end of Act 1. We're going to take, it's 8 o'clock now. We will be back at 8:15 to do the rest of this, so y'all can take a break.
Beautiful.
Some liquor.
Liquor. I hardly even know her.
Oh, nice.
Nice. I'm going to mute everybody, and we'll be back at 8:15.
Thank you, 15.
Thank you, 15.
Thank you, 15.
15.
Thank you for waiting while we're on break.
Come on, Plum, get it.
Yeah, I'm done. Somebody else be entertaining. You're still muted, Ginger. Well, then unmute yourself, you lazy tramp.
Well, I'm unmuted. How?
There you go. 5 minutes, y'all.
Thank you, 5. I got her, Mona.
I'm unmuted. Yay!
No, I muted all. I muted like
Danger!
Hey!
Oh, God.
Danger.
Oh, time to start the music again.
That's my
It sounds like a video game style.
like a video game or like a dubstep style, which I'm here for.
Dubstep.
I don't know. I just fucking YouTube the clue theme, and that's what came up.
Okay.
Good. First comment, probably the most underrated movie ever. Fuck you. This movie is beautiful. And it's not underrated.
Underrated? It's a
It's
cult classic.
It's not underrated. It's a cult classic. Like, people love the crap out of this movie.
Now, to be fair, though, I did tell Brianna last night, in box office terms, it bombed at the box office.
So did The Princess Bride.
We know. We
know you're upset, Princess Bride. We know.
You two know. I don't know any of these other people.
We know. No, we know. We know.
Ginger.
We
yeah,
know.
but did you know I'm obsessed with Princess Bride?
We know.
Ginger knows everything. She's omnipotent.
Right.
You know, the 1963 Cleopatra
omnipotent
with
is all
Elizabeth
powerful.
Taylor nearly
Yeah.
bankrupted the studio.
It wouldn't surprise
Yeah, because it was
me.
like the most expensive
Well,
movie
it
ever.
should
at that
have,
point, right?
because the white woman playing black people. It should have. But you know.
Ooh.
Well,
dropping the knowledge on us. 3 minutes.
I'm just saying.
Thank you, 3.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
It's so weird hearing you sing along to it because I'm playing it from my computer. So when you sing, you're like 3 seconds behind. I'm like, what is she doing?
Let's be real.
It took me a minute. I was like, oh wait, it's the delay. Dude, you're at least 3 seconds behind in life.
Oh no.
Don't feel bad for her.
I didn't highlight like half my line.
Part of why I laughed.
I know. You highlighted the lines and you missed a bunch of your own.
I know. I missed a bunch of yours too.
Only a couple. I figured it out.
Good.
Okay. I'm gonna unmute.
It's just this Nelly guy.
All right. So for the most part, we all back. I know that.
So while we have a couple of minutes, I think my favorite part. I know. I'm just saying, while we have a couple minutes before we start, we can talk. Fuck everybody. They can watch us ramble about nothing.
Everybody.
They watched us dance. They watched us dance for 15 minutes.
Well, Mona.
Right. So, I think my favorite part of this so far has been people recognizing and getting jokes that they've not gotten from watching it because they see it read. Like the Yvette, Miss Peacock, you know, oh no, I just have to powder my nose line. I saw like 3 people, like on the video I watched 3 people click like, oh shit, I finally got that joke. And it's one of my favorite jokes of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, but the whole movie is like that. And that's one of those things, like, I tend to watch movies with subtitles on.
Same.
So
Same.
like I'll get that kind of thing every once in a while because like I've got like auditory processing issues. So like a lot of times I won't actually catch stuff, or you know, if there's a lot of things going on, I can't differentiate between the different sounds. So subtitles help the crap out of me. But there's so often that like I'll see something and I'm like, oh, but I would not have gotten it just like hearing it like quickly as the movie goes. That's one of the cool things about this movie and this script.
Yes, and it's a tight script, and it's so good.
Yeah, it's so clever and so funny. Like I rewatched it today, and I was just like, this movie is completely foolish. But
I'm probably gonna put it on tonight.
But it's so funny. But it's funny.
When are you gonna put it on tonight? You were just in it.
Right.
All right, y'all. It's officially.
And I want to see more of myself.
Contrast. All right, we all here.
Yes. Hold on.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you're not here.
Me. It's me.
Good. Then we have not lost anyone.
Oh, not that again. Mona, thank you for being our intermission entertainment.
Right.
Before we get started in Act 2, I do have some news. We have hit goal on our fundraiser. We have surpassed goal. We are currently at $515 for the Metro
So now you have set a precedent. So
Yes.
shall we ever do this again? Then
Oh,
the stakes gotta
I'm
be
glad-
higher.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, Sam, because we
Oh,
are
Lord.
planning on another one. Our next one is going to be Clerks.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's all my announcements.
Well, you said we found a few scripts, right?
We found Dogma. I found Empire Records, which I would love to do.
Wow. Yeah.
If you're on the Facebooks, you should definitely comment on what we can try and hopefully find. And
Yes, let's do that.
We should have folks vote.
Yes.
Figure out which one we should do next.
Sam,
Yes, let's democratic system.
Yes. Sam, I also found Devil Wears Prada. If you want to do that.
Oh,
Yes.
the perfect white wig. I do have the perfect white wig for that.
Devil Wears Prada would make me so happy.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Okay, so before I
groundbreaking.
Yes. so before
I don't know this.
Florals.
Spring.
Groundbreaking.
So before I hand things back over to our narrator, the fundraiser is still going. I will have hopefully an updated total. Keep giving y'all. I'll have an updated total for us at the end of this. Yes.
Yay.
So,
Glorious. I love it.
And for those of you watching who may not know what
Wow.
is,
Good one.
Wow.
Sorry. I had Taco Bell for dinner.
Oh, I'm jealous.
I'm probably going to get Taco Bell for dinner too.
Oh, I'm going to go get
glad
Taco
it came out of
Bell.
the top
Sorry.
end. I'm just saying.
No, you're good. Okay, so MTUG, for those who may not know what that is, it's the Metro Trans Umbrella Group. It's one of our biggest trans advocacy groups. I think it's our only trans advocacy group.
Probably.
It is not the only.
Thank you. One of the biggest in the city of St. Louis. Helps with a lot. I mean, we're talking about food pantry. We're talking about transportation in terms of bus passes and everything. They are our support groups. There are therapist resources. There is pretty much everything that trans expansive folks could need assistance with. MTUG does that. I know Sayer was somewhere watching and listening, but they really do good work. I wanted to give them some love. Their window got busted this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
You didn't hear about that?
No.
It's like the 5th time it's happened.
Same person.
Yeah, so it's the same person that's done it. So they're actually going to have to be installing bars on the windows. So, I mean, obviously they're going to use whatever, they can use our funds for whatever, but they've had that happen and they're going to have to install bars on the windows, which I'm sure is not inexpensive.
They also had the TV taken, but I know someone that at HQ, but I know that someone has donated one since. So that is
good.
So,
I was going to say, because we have at least one extra here at the house.
So
yeah, I know that they do. They have, I mean, a lot of people know, but they have food and they have toiletries and they have clothing closet and everything. And what's really important right now is like most of the resources that are in place for people who are having issue, who are having to shelter in place and do all the things, the world, most resources are church related, and people who would be served by MTUG are not welcome at a lot of church resources. So this is
Correct.
for a lot of people the sole resource for food and toiletries and what have you. So it's really important that we give them the dollars.
Yes. Anybody else got
Oh my God! What the hell?
Did you just time out? Time out. Did you?
You're
just
like a
scare Cam
CNN
bitch?
reporter.
Oh my God!
I feel like I'm watching Paranormal Activity.
Oh my God. Okay.
Jesus.
All right. Are we ready to start the second act?
We're ready.
Is my narrator in place?
I'm ready. It looks like we're short one person though.
Oh, we have an extra human.
No, the motorist is here. We've got 11 people at least.
Okay.
So
I don't know. There's like someone else near the bottom.
There's an extra friend.
that's someone. That's someone listening to the. That's someone listening and watching to the stream.
All right. Well, there we go then.
We have a
person,
fan.
hey.
We
A
have
whole
fan.
fan.
The
We
killer.
have a whole fan.
A whole fan.
The killer.
All right. Okay, Bree. Bree, let's resume our story already in progress.
Let's go.
Do it.
I'm looking forward to this.
Interior, ground floor, the hall. We see the party as it splits up. Wadsworth, Miss and Mrs. White start up the stairs, as do Mr. Green and Yvette. Professor Plum and Mrs. Peacock stop, unsure of where to go. Wadsworth pauses on a step and indicates the door under the staircase.
The cellar.
Colonel Mustard and Mrs. Scarlet stop in the middle of the hall.
Well, we know what's in the study. We've just come from the library, and the stranger is locked up in the lounge.
Let's go look at the billiard room again.
They go to the billiard room. Professor Plum opens the door to the cellar. Mrs. Peacock reaches in and turns on the light. They enter cautiously. Interior, second floor, hallway. The storm is still around Hill House, visible from a second-story window. Wadsworth and Mrs. White walk down the hallway as Mr. Green and Yvette start climbing the stairs to the attic. We hear thunder and rain. Interior, attic. Darkness. We don't know exactly where we are.
Called love.
Oh, God. We don't know where we are.
Updated soundtrack.
Suddenly, a light turns on. We see Mr. Green and Yvette at the bottom of the attic stairway. Both of them are terrified of what may be above them. Silence.
Do you want to go up in front of me?
Absolutely no.
I'm sure there's no one up there.
Then you go in front.
All right, all right.
Neither move. We hear nothing but the rain on the roof. Interior, stellar staircase, darkness. We barely see Mrs. Peacock and Professor Plum backlit at the top of the stairs. They edge down. Mrs. Peacock gasps.
Well, ladies first.
No, you can go first.
No. I insist.
No, I insist.
Well, what are you afraid of? A fate worse than death?
No, just death. Isn't that enough?
Interior, second floor, hallway. Mrs. White and Wadsworth are at the doors of two adjacent rooms. They are looking at each other nervously.
You going in there?
Yes. Are you?
Yes. Right.
Right.
They look in.
I don't see any light switches in there.
Well, neither do I, but there must be switches somewhere.
Shall I come in too?
No! I mean, no. Thank you.
They start into their rooms and then jump out simultaneously, looking for the other. Interior, ground floor, billiard room. Colonel Mustard and Miss Peacock are in the back corner of bar. Are in back of the corner bar? Okay.
Yes.
They're stooping in to look out. They're stopping to look in. They stand and Colonel Mustard indicates the bar's narrow egress.
Ladies first?
No thanks.
She's not a lady.
That's my sister.
They both head for the exit. They have to squeeze through. It's a very tight fit. Colonel Mustard walks past Miss Scarlet, who is sure to keep him in sight. He grabs a pool cue from the wall. She gives a little gasp. Colonel Mustard walks over to the pool table and motions with the stick to look under it. They do. There's nothing there. Interior, attic. Mr. Green and Yvette are still where they were, at the bottom of the steps. We hear rain.
Go on. I'll be right behind you.
That's why I'm nervous.
Then we go together.
The two squeeze up the narrow steps. Interior, cellar. Mrs. Peacock and Professor Plum are still inching down the stairs. Mrs. Peacock turns on the lights as Professor Plum slips down a step. This frightens Mrs. Peacock, who runs down the remaining few steps.
Stay there!
Interior, ground floor, the hall, foyer. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet throw open the closet door. Nothing there. Interior, second floor, master bedroom. Wadsworth is wandering in the dark.
If there's anybody in here, just look out.
Interior, second floor, bedroom. Mrs. White is wandering like Wadsworth.
Mrs. Wet.
Mrs. Wet. That's what she said.
You hiding?
Hey.
Interior, ground
Sorry,
floor.
go ahead, Miss White.
Oh, wait. I think we drowned your line out. You can take it again if you want.
Are you hiding? I'm coming.
Oh, no.
Again, that's what she said.
She is Miss Wet.
Interior, ground floor, ballroom. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet are backlit. We see a wall behind them.
What room's this?
Search me.
All right.
He starts to frisk her.
Get your mitts off me.
He does. Interior, cellar. Mrs. Peacock sees a rat and screams. The rat crawls away. Professor Plum tenses, but he starts to look around. Interior, ground floor, ballroom. Colonel Mustard flips on the lights, making Miss Scarlet gasp.
Nobody here.
Behind one of those curtains.
She points to the curtains at the far end of the ballroom.
You look, I'll search the kitchen.
Colonel Mustard leaves. Miss Scarlet sighs. She starts to walk slowly toward the curtains. The curtains seem to be moving almost, but it could just be her imagination. Then there's a definite movement off to the right. Scarlet stops in her tracks, trying to scream but unable to. She continues cautiously. Scarlet reaches the curtains, pauses, and throws them back, revealing a broken window with the wind blowing in. Exterior, roadside. It is still raining. We see the motorist's car on the side of the road. A cop pulls up to investigate. Interior, ground floor, the study. We see photographs and papers, as well as the tapes of the conversation Yvette was making earlier. A gloved hand picks them up. The hand throws the photos and papers into the fire. Then the tape goes in. It all burns. The hand now uses a key to unlock the cupboard with the weapons. But wasn't that key thrown away? The weapons are revealed. Interior, motorist car. The camera reveals a cop shining his flashlight into the car. Exterior, roadside. As before, we see the cop shining his flashlight into the car. Interior, ground floor, the lounge. The motorist is making his phone call.
I'm a little nervous.
The camera reveals the lounge's fireplace, which is swiveling around.
I'm in this big house, and I've been locked into the lounge. Yes?
The next statements are intercut with the wrench approaching the motorist.
The funny thing is, there's a whole group of people having some sort of party, and one of them is my old boss from...
The wrench descends. The phone falls to the floor, then the motorist follows suit. A gloved hand places the phone back onto its cradle. Exterior, roadside. The cop shines his flashlight on the car's license plate, then underneath the car, he walks away. Interior, ground floor, conservatory. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet stand in the doorway, backlit by the hall. Rain can still be heard, but no lightning. Colonel Mustard switches on the lights. The two look around. The conservatory is dilapidated. There is dust and cobwebs all around. It obviously hasn't been used for some time. Miss Scarlet walks to the outer wall of windows. Rain pours down on them. Colonel Mustard walks to one side and picks up something. He then takes a rag and wipes his hands off. While doing so, he leans against the wall and it swings open. He falls down, but quickly gets up.
Looks like a secret passage.
See where it leads?
What the hell? I'll go first. I've had a good life.
Interior, ground floor, conservatory, lounge, secret passage. There's a secret passage. The secret passage is narrow and the floor is uneven. Miss Scarlet trips and yells in surprise.
Oh, God!
It's all right.
Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet emerge from behind the still rotated fireplace. They see the motorist's corpse.
Oh, my God!
The fireplace slides shut behind them. Scarlet panics. She starts yelling.
Ah!
Interior, attic. Mr. Green and Yvette can faintly hear Miss Scarlet's yells. Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Scarlet and Mustard run to the double doors. They're locked. Now they are both yelling. Interior, second floor, hallway. Wadsworth and Mrs. White run for the staircase. Interior, second floor, attic, staircase. Base. Mr. Green and Yvette run down from the attic. Interior, second floor, hallway. The four people collide and go sprawling.
Oh, my leg!
Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Miss Scarlet and Colonel Mustard are still banging at the door, screaming. Interior, second floor, the hall. The four upstairs untangle themselves. Wadsworth and Mr. Green run down the stairs, followed by Yvette and Mrs. White.
Where's it coming from?
Where are we going?
They make it to the ground floor just as Professor Plum and Miss Peacock emerge from the cellar.
Where are they?
The lounge!
Wadsworth tries the door. It's locked.
The door's locked.
I know.
Then unlock it.
Where's the key?
Wadsworth searches his pockets.
The key is gone!
Never mind about the key. Unlock the door.
I can't unlock the door without the key.
Green releases the professor and bangs on the door.
Let us in. Let us in.
Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Sorry.
Let us out! Let us out!
Let us out!
Interior, ground floor, the hall.
It's no good. Stand back.
He backs all the way up to cross the hall to the study door.
There's no alternative. I'm just going to have to break it down.
The butler runs at full speed for the door. He hits it and falls to the floor, holding his shoulder. Yvette gets an idea.
I know! I have it!
Interior, ground floor, the lounge. The two in the lounge are still yelling. Interior, ground floor, the hall.
Will you shut up?
Interior, ground floor, the study. Yvette grabs the revolver from the open cupboard.
We're doing our best.
God. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Yvette runs out of the study and trips over the still sprawled Wadsworth. The shot goes wild, hitting the chandelier rope. Mr. Green and Professor Plum hit the deck. The chandelier starts spinning.
I'm gonna swing from the chandelier. Sorry.
Oh, God.
1, 2, 3, drink.
Mrs. Peacock and Mrs. White run into each other. Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Mustard and Scarlet are crouched down.
They're shooting at us!
Interior, ground floor, the hall. Panic continues. The chandelier continues to spin, and the rope is fraying. Unbeknownst to the party, Yvette stands and aims at the lounge lock. Plum and Green, who had started to get up, hit the floor again. Yvette fires twice. Both shots hit the door lock. Interior, ground floor, lounge. Colonel Mustard turns away from the door, holding his shoulder.
I've been shot!
Interior, ground floor, the hall. Oh, that's you again.
Mustard, you got
You've
another.
been shot
Oh my
again.
God! No, it didn't copy and paste into my document. Someone cover me.
I've been shot.
It says I've been shot again.
Shot!
That's literally all it is. It's just another I've been shot.
Come out! The door is open!
She lowers the gun, so it's carelessly pointing in the direction of Professor Plum and Mr. Green. They scramble out of the way. The lounge door opens, and a miraculously unwounded Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet emerge.
Why are you shooting that thing at us?
To get you out.
He shoves her.
You know you could have killed us. I could have been killed.
The chandelier is spinning even more quickly. The rope is almost completely frayed.
I can't take any more scares.
The rope snaps. The chandelier lands 3 feet in the back of Colonel Mustard. Mustard is in shock. He collapses onto a love seat.
The phantom on the
Sing for me, my angel.
Scarlet points into the lounge, almost hysterical.
Scarlet.
Wait, no, Peacock.
No, it's you.
Okay,
No?
we found him together.
No, baby.
No,
Stay
before
put.
that. Why do you suck so
I
bad?
already did that. Nobody listened.
Nobody could hear you.
Oh, I didn't hear it. No, sorry.
But look,
There you go.
There
The
we
party
go.
runs
There
across the
you
room,
go.
crushing glass as they go.
Which one of you did it?
we found him together.
How did you get in?
The door was locked.
It's a great trick.
There's a secret passageway for the conservatory.
Is that the same gun?
From the cupboard?
But it was locked.
No, it was unlocked.
Unlocked?
But yes, see it for yourself.
The party runs into the lounge. On the way, Yvette tosses a revolver under the broken chandelier. Interior, ground floor, the study. The guests pile in and see that the cupboard has indeed been opened.
How did you know it was unlocked? How did you know that you could get at the gun?
I didn't. I think I would break it open, but it was open already.
A likely story.
The doorbell rings. The guests freeze in place.
Oh, what? I've had so much wine. Sorry. It'll just
I
go
only
away.
gave you half a bottle. Come on.
It's gone, bitch.
You're such a fucking lightweight.
Oh my god.
The doorbell is still ringing. The guests are still frozen. The doorbell rings again. The doorbell rings again. The guests are quite disappointed.
I'm going to open it.
Hello.
Why?
My name is Elder White.
I have nothing to hide. I didn't do it. The
He holds
key.
his- Wadsworth hands the key to Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Mr. Green strides into the hall, followed by the rest of the party. Interior, ground floor, the hall, foyer. Mr. Green opens the door, revealing the cop.
Who's the police? Good evening, sir.
The door closes in the cop's face.
Correct answer.
Exterior, Hill House, porch, view inside. The door reopens.
Yes.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting that. Well played, sir.
That's what she said.
I found an abandoned car near the gate of this house. Did the driver come in here for any help by any chance?
No,
No,
not at
all.
No.
Not at all.
Well, actually, yes.
No.
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 Well, there seems to be some sort of disagreement.
No.
No, nothing wrong here.
No.
Oh no.
Things fine.
Yes.
Can I come in and use your phone?
Wadsworth steps to the front door.
Of course you may, sir. You may use the one in the no. You could use the one in the no. Would you be kind enough to wait in the library?
Sure.
Interior, ground floor, the hall. The cop sees Yvette.
Don't I know you from someplace?
The maid
No. Is it because I'm black?
Oh, sorry, that's me again. You all should seem to be very anxious or something.
As the chandelier fell down, almost killed us. Would you come this way, please, sir?
Mrs. Scarlet closes the door to the study suddenly and attempts to look nonchalant. The cop whirls at the sound. Professor Plum does the same to the lounge door. The cop whirls again.
Frightfully drafty, these old houses.
Interior ground floor library. Wadsworth leads the cop in and indicates the phone.
Please help yourself to a drink if you'd like.
The cop reaches for the cognac.
Not the cognac, just in case.
Butler exits and closes the door.
Just in case of what?
Interior ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth locks the door and turns to the assembled guests. Interior ground floor library. The cop tries the door handle. It is, of course, locked. Interior ground floor the hall.
We should have told him.
Oh, very well for you to say that now.
I said it then.
Oh, shut
up!
Let's clean this up.
Interior ground floor library. The cop pauses at the door, then walks over to the phone. He reaches for it, but it rings before he picks it up. He answers the phone.
Hello?
Interior ground floor the hall. All are still.
Maybe the cop.
Interior ground floor library.
And who shall I say is calling? Will you hold, please?
The cop strides over to the library doors.
Let me out of here! Let me out of here! You have no right to shut me in! I'll book you for false arrest and wrong imprisonment and obstructing an officer in the course of his duty and murder!
Interior ground floor of the hall. The door opens. The party stands there. Wadsworth with a broom in hand.
What do you mean, murder?
I just said it so you'd open the door. What's going on around here? And why would you lock me in? And why are you receiving phone calls from J. Edgar Hoover?
J. Edgar Hoover?
He wants to borrow my
That's
dress.
right. The head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And
Why is J. Edgar Hoover on your phone?
I don't know. He's on everybody else's. Why shouldn't he be on mine? Excuse me.
Wadsworth enters, then closes and locks the door.
What's going on here?
Miss Scarlet drapes herself on the cop.
We're having
Do you mind if I look around?
Sure. You can show him around, Mr. Green.
Me?
Yeah, you can show him the dining room and the kitchen and the ballroom.
Fine. Officer, come with me. I'll show you the dining room, or the kitchen, or the ballroom.
Interior ground floor dining room. The cop raises the metal partition and looks into the kitchen. Interior ground floor lounge.
Drunko, that's you.
I said make it look convincing.
Okay, we didn't think it.
Gotta say it into the mic.
Oh,
Say
sorry.
it into the mic.
That's what he said.
Okay.
Interior ground floor dining room.
So, this is the dining room.
No kidding.
Interior ground floor lounge.
Fun.
Interior ground floor dining room.
What's going on in those two rooms?
Which two rooms?
Cop pushes past him and enters the hall. Interior ground floor the hall. A couple of guests run frantically across the hall. Just as they leave the room, the cop enters and points at the lounge and the study.
These two rooms.
Oh, those two rooms.
Yes.
Mr. Green is at a loss. The cop strides toward the study door. Mr. Green blocks the cop's path.
Officer, I don't think you should go in there.
Why not?
The cop dodges around Mr. Green. The guest blocks the door to the study with his body.
Because it's all too shocking.
The cop throws Mr. Green aside. Interior, ground floor, the study. Music can be heard in the background. It's like could be a dream on a record player. Mrs. White is up against the couch, is on the couch on top of Mr. Body, using her hand to move his arm against her and pretending to kiss him. The cop sees Colonel Mustard and a woman apparently kissing against the far wall in a curtain. The camera reveals Mrs. Peacock is behind the curtain. Her hands are on Colonel Mustard's back, but Mrs. Ho is propped between them.
Not all that shocking. These folks are just having a good time.
The cop leaves the hall. Mr. Green is surprised. Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Miss Scarlet pours a drink into the motorist's mouth. The motorist is propped against a chair, drink in hand. The music can still be heard, but faintly. Interior, ground floor, the study. Colonel Mustard and Mrs. Peacock roll Mrs. Ho onto the couch.
Oh my God.
Interior, ground floor, the lounge. Just before the cop enters, Professor Plum takes Miss Scarlet onto the couch and begins kissing her. She has no choice but to follow his example. The cop comes in.
Excuse me.
The two lovers get up with a start. The cop notices the motorist. He leans into the dead man's face and sniffs.
This man's drunk. Dead drunk.
Dead right.
You're not going to drive home, are you?
He won't be driving home. I promise you that, officer.
Yeah.
Somebody will give him a lift, huh?
Oh, we'll get him to a car.
A long black car.
A limousine.
Professor Plum again lowers Mrs. Scarlet to the couch. She gives off a little cry of surprise. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Wadsworth exits the library. He leans against the door and sighs in thought. The cop and Mr. Green enter the hall. Wadsworth throws off his thoughts and walks to them.
Officer!
You're too late. I've seen it all.
All during this conversation, Mr. Green is standing behind the cop, looking at Wadsworth. Green looks mystified but relieved.
You have? I can explain everything.
You don't have to.
I don't?
Don't worry. There's nothing illegal about any of this.
Are you sure?
Of course. This is America.
I see.
It's a free country, don't you know that?
Didn't know it was that free.
The cop glances back at Mr. Green, who tries to look innocent.
May I use your phone now?
Certainly.
The butler leads the cop to the library once again and locks it. The guests start to merge into the hall.
Why did you lock him in again?
We haven't finished searching the house yet.
Oh, we're running out of time. Only 15 minutes till the police come.
The police already came.
Shut up! Let's get on with it.
Monsieur?
The guests again split up to search the house as the music continues. Interior, ground floor, kitchen. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet enter. Colonel Mustard suddenly opens a door only to have an ironing board hit him in the head. Miss Scarlet opens the door to the freezer. She grasps one of the meat hooks. It turns in her grip and reveals another secret passage in the back of the freezer. She gives off a cry of surprise.
Woo! Look! I can't believe it! I wonder where this one goes.
Well, let's find out.
They step in. Interior, ground floor, the study. The music still continues. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet swing aside a large painting and enter the room from the secret passage. They shrug.
Let's try the ballroom again.
Interior, attic. Mr. Green and Yvette are still poking around in the attic. Interior, ground floor, cellar steps, top. The camera reveals a gloved hand pulling a lever down. All electricity is shut off, the lights go off instantly, and the music stops. Interior, cellar, boiler room. Mrs. Peacock, in the darkness, backs up into the boiler. She thinks it's a person, perhaps Professor Plum, and starts to hit it with her handbag.
Don't you touch me!
Interior, second floor, master bedroom. A gust of wind blows in, shutting a door. Wadsworth yells in fright.
Ooh!
Interior, second floor, bedroom. Mrs. White screams.
Ah!
Interior, ground floor, staircase. Yvette is descending the stairs quietly. Mrs. White's scream can still be heard.
Ah!
Interior, ground floor, library. The cop is on the phone.
Hello? Hello?
Interior, ground floor, billiard room. Yvette enters quietly. An off-screen voice can be heard. It can't be identified, even as being male or female. The first line sounds male, the second female. Shut the door. Did anyone recognize you? Suddenly, Yvette's French accent is gone.
They must have. And not just my face. They know every inch of my body. And they're not the only ones.
A noose flies onto Yvette's neck.
It's you!
Oh, God. Interior, ground floor, library. The cop is still on the phone.
There's something funny going on here. I don't know what it is.
The camera reveals the door handle being silently opened.
No, I'm not on duty, but I have a feeling that I'm in danger. You know that big, ugly house on top?
The lead pipe comes down softly onto the phone cradle, shutting the connection off. We see the pipe being raised behind the cop's head.
Hello? Hello? Are you there? Hello?
Interior, ground floor, the hall. The doorbell is ringing. Views of the guests' faces. Interior, ground floor, the hall view outside. The front door opens. A young woman is outside. She is dressed in a uniform and strikes a pose as the door opens.
I am the singing telegram.
The gun fires. She falls to the ground. The door slams shut. Interior, attic, rear room. Mr. Green, trying to get out, opens a closet. Its contents fall on him. Interior, second floor bedroom. A jack-in-the-box springs open, frightening Mrs. White. She screams. Interior, second floor, master bedroom. Mrs. White's unintelligible yells can be heard.
I'm coming. I'm just trying to find the door.
Wadsworth enters another part of the master bedroom.
Coming.
The handle.
What's this? I'm at the door.
He twists the handle, starting the shower. He is promptly very wet.
Hey, it's Mrs. Wet.
Who's making wet now?
Oh, God. Interior, ground floor, staircase. A very wet Wadsworth sloshes down the...
Oh, my.
Goodness.
A very wet Wadsworth sloshes down the steps. He goes to the entrance to the cellar and pulls up the lever, restoring electricity to Hill House. Interior, ground floor, the study. The record player starts playing again, taking several seconds to get up to speed. Interior.
Hang on, I got it.
You got it.
Life is but a dream.
I dreamed a dream in times gone by.
'Cause I'm dreaming.
All right, there we go.
Sweet dreams are made of this.
Okay.
Interior, ground floor of the hall. The party, minus Yvette, slowly reassembles in the hall. The song ends. Interior,
We just
ground
turned
floor,
it on.
billiard room. The camera reveals the guests looking in from the hall. They see Yvette's corpse sprawled on the pool table, still with the noose on her neck, and they walk off. Interior, ground floor library. The camera reveals the guests looking in from the hall. They see the cop's corpse hung over a table. The guests stand at the door.
2 murders.
Professor Plum enters the library and picks up the lead pipe.
Neither of them shot. I thought I heard a gun.
I did.
So did I.
I thought I heard the front door slam.
Oh, God! The murderer must have run out!
The guests run to the front door. Exterior, Hill House porch. The guests open the door, seeing the singing telegram girl's body. It has a bullet hole neatly through the forehead.
Remus.
I'm dead.
6 altogether.
This is getting serious.
They close the door and lock it. Interior, ground floor, the hall. The guests walk onto the main floor.
No gun. Yvette dropped it here. Very well. I know who did it.
You do?
You do?
And furthermore, I'm going to tell you all how it was done. Follow me.
He walks to the library. The guests follow. Interior, ground floor library. Wadsworth addresses the assembled guests.
In order to help you understand what happened, I shall need to take you through the events of the evening step by step. Yvette was here by herself, waiting to offer you a glass of champagne. I was in the hall. I know because I was there. Then I hurried across to the kitchen.
He waves for the guests to follow him. Interior, ground floor, kitchen. Wadsworth is running into the kitchen. Something. The guests following.
And the cook was in here, alive, sharpening knives, preparing for dinner. And then...
Interior, ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth springs up to the front door, the guests following closely. He proceeds to act out the events.
And the doorbell rang, and it was you.
Yes.
I asked you for your coat, and I recognized you as Colonel Mustard, and I prevented you from telling your real name because I didn't want any of you to use a name other than your pseudonym, and I introduced myself to you as the butler, and I ran across the hall to the library.
He does so, with the confused guests in tow. Interior, ground floor library. Wadsworth imitates everything he describes.
And then Yvette met you, and smiled, and poured you a drink.
He runs for the hall. Interior, ground floor of the hall, foyer. Wadsworth heads for the front door.
And the doorbell rang. And I took a coat and made off.
They head for the library again. Interior, ground floor library.
And I introduced to Colonel Mustard. Hello, hello. And then I noticed that Mrs. White and Yvette flinched. Then there was a rumble of thunder and a crash of lightning. And to make a long story short...
Too late.
Too late.
Too late.
One by one, you all arrived.
Interior, ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth grabs the gong mallet.
And then the gong was struck by the cook.
It's a gong now.
He does so.
The bong mallet.
Cook hit the bong.
and we went into the dining room.
Interior, ground floor dining room. Wadsworth goes around the table, indicating chairs.
And Mrs. Peacock sat here, and Professor Plum sat here, and Mrs. White sat here, and Mr. Green, Miss Scarlet, Colonel Mustard. This chair was vacant. Anyway, we'd all revealed we'd all received a letter, and you had a letter, and you had a letter, and you had a letter.
Get on with it. Get on with that.
The point is, yes. The point is, no, it's Monty Python.
Monty Python.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
The point is blackmail.
But all this came out after dinner in the study.
You're right.
He heads into the hall. Interior, ground floor of the hall. The party runs across the hall to the study. Interior, ground floor, study. The butler rushes around the room, pointing at different locations.
Mr. Green stood here, and Mrs. Peacock here, and Miss Scarlet here, Professor Plum here, and Colonel Mustard, and Mrs. White, and...
Get on with it!
I'm getting there. And Mr. Bolly went to get his surprise packages from the hole, and you all opened your presents, and Mr. Bolly switched out the lights.
Wadsworth turns off the lights. Pause. Everyone screams. The lights are flipped back on. Wadsworth is lying on the floor, and the guests, tired of this, react with disgust. The butler opens his eyes.
Mr. Bolly lay on the floor, apparently dead.
He was dead. I examined him.
Then why was he bashed on the head a few minutes later with a candlestick if he was dead already?
All right, I made a mistake.
Right. But if so, why was Mr. Bolly pretending to be dead? It could only be because he realized his scheme had misfired, and the gunshot was intended to kill him, not me. Look!
He points at the blood on one of Mr. Body's earlobes.
The bullet grazed his ear. Clearly his best way of escaping death was to pretend to be dead already.
So whoever grabbed the gun from me in the dark was trying to kill him.
But remember what happened next.
He goes to the door and picks up the glass from the table.
Mrs. Peacock took a drink. You said, maybe it's poisoned. She screams. Woo! Woo!
Wadsworth takes Mrs. Peacock, who, helpfully, starts to scream. The butler sits her down on the couch.
Mr. Green!
Wadsworth slaps Mrs. Peacock.
Well, I had to stop her screaming. Then, more screaming. Yvette, the billiard room. We all rushed out.
As they do now. Interior, ground floor, billiard room. Wadsworth sits on the pool table. The guests pool around the door.
But one of us wasn't here. No.
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 No. Maybe one of us was murdering the cook. Who wasn't here with us?
The guests pause.
Do you know?
I do. While we stood here, trying to stop Yvette from panicking,
He leaves for the study. Interior, ground floor of the study.
one of us could have stayed in the study, picked up the dagger.
He does so. Interior, ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth is running down the hall.
Run down the hall
Interior, ground floor kitchen.
and stab the cook.
He plunges the dagger into a chicken as the guests arrive at the door.
Oh, how can he risk it? We might have seen him running back.
Wadsworth goes over to the freezer and pushes open the back of the freezer, exposing the kitchen study secret passage.
Not if they used this secret passage. The murderer ran back out to the secret passage to the study.
Miss Wadsworth leaves the kitchen for the hall. Interior, ground floor, the hall. The butler is going for the study.
Is that where it comes out?
Yes, look!
Interior, ground floor, the study. Wadsworth pushes open the picture.
What?
How did you know?
This house belongs to a friend of mine. I've known all along.
So you could be the murderer.
Don't be ridiculous. If I was the murderer, why would I reveal to you how I did it? That's called monologuing.
The guests nod.
Oh,
Well, who else knew about the secret passage?
He found it. Colonel Mustard and me.
You found it. You could have known about it all the time.
But I didn't.
Well, why should we believe you?
Because she was with us all in the billiard room doorway while Yvette was screaming. Don't you remember?
What I don't understand is, why was the cook murdered? She had nothing to do with Mr. Body.
I gathered you all here together because you all implicated in Mr. Body's dastardly blackmail. Did none of you deduce that the others were involved too?
Evidently, no one had.
What others?
The cook and Yvette?
No!
That's how he got all his information. Before he could blackmail anyone, Mr. Body had to discover the guilty secret. The cook and Yvette were his accomplices.
I see. So whoever knew that the cook was involved killed her.
Yes.
Colonel Mustard looks very happy.
I know because I was Mr. Body's butler that the cook had worked for one of you.
Well, who?
Who?
You recognized Yvette, didn't you? Don't deny it.
What do you mean, don't deny it? I'm not denying anything.
Another denial.
All right. It's true. I knew Yvette. My husband had an affair with her, but I didn't care. I wasn't jealous.
You knew Yvette too, didn't you?
Well, yes, she worked for me.
And you also knew her, sir. We've already established that you're one of Miss Scarlet's clients. That's why you were so desperate to get your hands on those negatives. Photographs of you and Yvette in flagrante delicto, remember?
Mr. Body threatened to send those pictures to my dear old mother. Her shock would have killed her.
Ha! That would have been quite an achievement since you told us that she's dead already. So, he had the motive.
You all had a motive.
But where and when was Mr. Body killed?
Don't you see?
He grabs Mr. Green.
Look, we came back to the study with Yvette. Mr. Body was on the floor.
Wadsworth trips Mr. Green to the floor as Mr. Body, pretending to be dead. Oh, sorry.
You're good. Pretending to be dead. But one of us noticed he was alive, so I explained that I was Mr. Body's butler and I'd have invited you here, and we realized there was only one other person in the house.
The cook!
Wadsworth leaves the guests far behind. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Everyone runs from up the hall to the kitchen. Interior, ground floor, kitchen. The guests enter breathless. Mr. Green runs to the freezer just like he did before, but there's no Wadsworth.
Well, where is he?
The freezer door opens. Miss Scarlet screams.
Ah!
Wadsworth, looking quite dead, falls into Mr. Green's arms. The exasperated Mr. Green drops the butler to the floor. Wadsworth opens his eyes.
By now, she was dead. We laid her down with our backs to the freezer. One of us slipped through the same secret passage.
Again?
Of course, back to the study.
They all run out. Interior, ground floor, the study. Wadsworth acts as if he just entered the study from the secret passage.
The murderer was in the secret passage. Meanwhile, Mr. Body...
Wadsworth again throws Mr. Green to the floor.
...had been on the floor. He jumped up.
The butler picks up Mr. Green, then lets him fall again.
The murderer came out of the secret panel, picked up the candlestick.
The butler acts as if he had a candlestick. He goes after Mr. Green, who may not be acting his look of panic. Interior, ground floor, the hall. Wadsworth is pursuing a frightened Mr. Green up the hall toward the bathroom.
Mr. Body followed us out of the study into the hall looking for an escape. The murderer crept up behind him and killed him!
Mr. Wadsworth brings his hand down upon Mr. Green's head. Mr. Green falls.
Will you stop that?
No.
Butler grabs Mr. Green and proceeds to the bathroom.
And then he threw him into the toilet.
No!
Wadsworth leans against the bathroom door frame, pretending to check a watch.
And nonchalantly rejoined us beside the cook's body in the kitchen. It took less than half a minute.
So who wasn't there the entire time in the kitchen?
Whoever it was is the murderer.
He runs off. The bathroom door opens and Mr. Green emerges, drying his hands. He can hear a toilet flush. He hands a towel to Colonel Mustard. Interior, ground floor of the study. Wadsworth runs in.
And we put the weapons in the cupboard, locked it, and ran to the front door.
He runs out, almost colliding with the just arrived guests. Interior, ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth opens the front door and makes as if throwing the key away.
To throw away the key! The motorist! I didn't throw the key away. I put it in my pocket, and someone could have taken it out of my pocket and substituted another.
We were all in a huddle. Any one of us could have done that.
Precisely.
Slams the front door.
Wait a minute. Colonel Mustard has a top-secret Pentagon job. Mrs. White's husband is a nuclear physicist. And...
He runs into the billiard room and points in.
Yvette is a link between them.
What is your top secret job, Colonel?
I can tell you. Bomb.
How did you know that?
Can you keep a secret?
Yes.
So can I.
Oh shit! Is it plot between them, Wadsworth,
Peacock,
or did? Is this a plot between them, Wadsworth, or did Colonel Mustard do it alone?
We shall see. We shall see. Let's look at the other murders.
Yes, bad luck that the motorist arrived at that moment.
It wasn't luck. I invited him.
You did?
Of course, it's obvious. Everyone here tonight was either Mr. Body's victim or accomplice. Everyone who has died gave him vital information about one of you. I got them here so they give evidence against him and force him to confess.
Oh, yeah? Well, what about the motorist? What kind of information did he have?
He was my driver during the war.
Mustard sits in a chair.
And what was he holding over you?
He knew that I was a war profiteer. I stole essential Air Force radio parts and I sold them on the black market, and that's how I made all my money, but that does not make me a murderer.
Well, a lot of airmen die because their radios didn't work. Was the policeman working for Mr. Body too?
Pop was from Washington. He was on my payroll. I bribed him once a week so I could carry on with business. Mr. Body found out somehow.
Oh my God.
Oh, please.
And the singing telegram girl?
Exterior, Hill House. Front door, view inside. The rain has stopped. The people open the door and see the singing telegram girl's corpse.
She was my patient once. Had an affair with her. That's how I lost my license. Mr. Body found that out too.
Well, let's put her in the study with the others.
Interior, ground floor of the study. The men drop the singing telegram girl's body on the floor.
So now you know. Now you all know why they died. Whoever killed Mr. Body also wanted his accomplices dead.
How did the murderer know all about them? I mean, I admit I had guessed this young singer informed on me to Mr. Body, but I didn't know anything about it, any of you all, until this evening.
First, the murderer needed to get the weapons. Easy. He stole the key from my pocket, and then we all followed Colonel Mustard's suggestion that we split up and search the house.
That's right. It was Colonel Mustard's suggestion.
Colonel Mustard cannot meet their eyes.
And one of us got away from his or her partner and hurried to the study. On the desk was the envelope from Mr. Body. It contained photographs and letters, the evidence of Mr. Body's network of informants.
Where is the envelope now?
Gone. Destroyed.
He looks
Perhaps
around.
Perhaps in the fire. The only possible place. Aha! Then, having found out the whole story, the murderer went to the cupboard, unlocked it with the key, took out the wrench.
Then we found the secret passage from the conservatory to the lounge, where we found the motorist dead.
Interior, ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth frantically acts out the next scene.
That's right. We couldn't get in, so Yvette ran to the open cupboard and shut the door open. Bang! And then the doorbell rang.
The doorbell rings. Everyone freezes in terror.
Ah! Whoever it is, they gotta go away or they'll be killed! Oh!
Mrs. Peacock opens the front door. A rather elderly evangelicalist stands outside, pamphlets in hand.
Elderly, bitch, I swear to God, you call me out like that. I may be past my gay death, but you don't have to call me old. Damn.
But
all right. Mm-hmm. All right. Good evening. Have you given any thought to the kingdom of heaven?
What?
Repent. The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Wait, just whistling Dixie.
Armageddon is almost upon us.
I've got news for you. It's already here.
Mrs. Peacock tries to shut the door on him.
Go away!
But your souls are in danger.
Our lives are in danger, you beatnik!
Oh, God. She shuts the door on him, closing several of his pamphlets inside.
The cop arrived next. We locked him in the library. We forgot the cupboard with the weapons was now unlocked. And the murderer switched off the electricity.
He does so. Everything goes black.
Oh my God.
Not again!
Turn on the lights!
Wadsworth turns on the lights. Interior, ground floor, the hall.
Sorry, didn't mean to frighten you.
You're a bit late for that. I hate it when he does that.
Uh-huh.
Then there were 3 more murders.
So, which of us killed them?
None of us killed Mr. Body or the cook.
So who did?
Who did?
The one person who wasn't with us.
E equals MC squared.
I guess try to figure it out.
Yvette.
Yvette?
She was in the billiard room listening to our conversation.
Cut to flashback of Yvette sitting on the pool table. The following events transpire as Wadsworth describes them.
She heard the gunshot. She thought he was dead. And while we all examined the bullet hole, she crept into the study, picked up the dagger, and ran to the kitchen and stabbed the cook.
Yvette stabs Mrs. Ho in the back.
That hoe.
That hoe.
The hall.
I didn't get to my line yet. We didn't hear the cook scream because Mrs. Peacock was screaming about the poison brandy. Then Yvette returned to the billiard room. She screamed and we all ran to her.
Cut to present, the hall.
Well, when did she kill Mr. Body?
When I said, we all ran to the kitchen to see the cook. Yvette hid in the study to check that Mr. Body was dead.
Cut to flashback of Yvette hiding behind a chair in the lounge. The following events transpire as Wadsworth describes them.
He got up and followed them down the hall, so she hit him on the head with a candlestick and dragged him into the toilet.
Cut to present in the hall.
Why?
To create confusion.
It worked!
Why did she do it?
Was it because she was acting under orders from the person who later killed her?
Who?
Who?
Ooh!
You sound like a bunch of owls. Was it one of her clients? Or was it a jealous wife? Or an adulterous doctor? No, it was her employer, Miss Scarlet.
That's a lie!
Is it? You used her the way you always used her. You killed the motorist when we split up to search the house.
How could I have known about the secret passage?
Easy. Yvette told you. So when we split up again.
Cut to Miss Scarlet, gloved, turning off the electricity.
You switched off the electricity. It was easy for you here on the ground floor. Then in the dark, you got the lead pipe and the rope, strangled Yvette, ran to the library, killed the cop, picked up the gun where Yvette dropped it, opened the front door, recognized the same telegram from her photograph, and shot her.
Cut to present, the hall.
You've no proof.
The gun is missing. Gentlemen, turn out your pockets. Ladies, empty your purses. Whoever has the gun is the murderer.
They all do so. Suddenly, Miss Scarlet pulls out the revolver. She points it at him.
Brilliantly worked out, Wadsworth. I congratulate you.
He shrugs off the praise. Miss Scarlet starts to slowly make her way to the front door.
Me too.
Shut up!
Now, there's one thing I don't understand.
One thing?
Why did you do it? Half of Washington knows what kind of business you run. You were in no real danger. The whole town would be implicated if you were exposed.
I don't think they know my real business. My business is secrets. Yvette found them out for me. The secrets of Senator Peacock's Defense Committee, of Colonel Mustard's few bomb, Professor Plum's UN contacts, and the work of your husband, the nuclear physicist.
So it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green, communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist, and I'm gonna sell my secrets, your secrets, to the highest bidder.
And what if we don't cooperate?
You will, or I'll expose you.
It could expose you. 6 murders?
I hardly think that will enhance your reputation at the UN, Professor Plum. If it's revealed that you have been implicated not only in adultery with one of your patients, but in her death.
He lowers the revolver at him.
And the deaths of 5 other people.
You don't know what kind of people they have at the UN. I might go up in their estimation.
Colonel Mustard starts toward Miss Scarlet. She brings the revolver to bear on him.
It is no good blackmailing me, madam. I have no more money.
The guests agree, claiming the same thing.
Damn, money.
Oh, I know, sweetie pie. But you can pay me in government information. All of you.
He pauses, then walks to Wadsworth. She points the revolver at him.
Except for you, Wadsworth. You're a mere butler. Have no access to government secrets.
She cocks the gun.
So I'm afraid your moment has come.
Not so fast, Scarlet. I do have a secret or two.
Oh, yeah? Such as?
The game's up, Scarlet. There are no more bullets left in that gun.
Oh, come on. You really think I'm going to fall for that old trick?
It's not a trick. There was 1 shot at Mr. Body in the study, 2 for the chandelier, 2 at the lounge door, and 1 for the singing telegram.
That's not 6.
1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1.
There was only 1 shot that got that chandelier. That's 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Even if you are right, that would be 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1, not 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Okay, fine. 1 plus 2 plus 1. Oh, shut up! Point is, there's 1 bullet left in this gun. Guess who's gonna get it?
The doorbell rings.
Ding dong!
Scarlet is distracted by it. Wadsworth turns her arm around, taking the gun and forcing her to kneel on the floor. Mr. Green runs for the door and opens it. Cops pour in. Mr. Green cowers by the closet in the foyer.
I'm only a guest.
Where's the chief?
The elderly evangelist, thank you. That word is escaping me today. The elderly evangelist, the chief, walks in, gun in hand.
This bitch keeps calling me old. Oh, Wadsworth, well done. I did warn you, my dear. Mr. Hoover is an expert on Armageddon.
Scarlet is pulled to her feet.
Wadsworth, don't hate me for trying to shoot you.
Frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn. As I was trying to tell you, there are no bullets left in this gun, you see?
He pulls the trigger, firing the 6th bullet through the rope of the 2nd chandelier. Wadsworth is perplexed. Scarlet shrugs, embarrassed.
1 plus 2 plus 1.
The camera reveals Colonel Mustard.
Plus 2 plus 1.
And the chandelier shatters on the floor behind him. The camera freezes. That's what could have happened. But how about this? Wadsworth has just turned on the lights, like at the beginning of Ending A.
In the dark, the murderer ran across the hall to the study, picked up the rope and the lead pipe, ran to the billiard room, strangled Yvette.
He demonstrates on Mrs. White.
It's a spelling error. Ran to the library, hit the cop on the head with the lead pipe, and then coming out of the library, the doorbell rang. It was a singing telegram. The murderer picked up the gun where Yvette dropped it, ran to the door, opened it, recognized the girl from a picture, shot her, and ran back to the cellar.
The cellar!
Cellar!
Yes.
But Colonel Mustard wasn't in the cellar.
No, but you were.
So?
Sorry, someone was trying to Facebook call me in the middle of that line.
Oh no!
Bastard!
I know.
So?
Yeah.
Call them out, name names.
Yes. It was my house of effort. Sorry, guys. You murdered them all. You were the person who was missing when the cook and Mr. Buddy were murdered. And the cook used to be your cook. Don't you remember your fatal mistake? You told us at dinner that we were eating one of your favorite recipes. And monkey's brains, though popular in Cantonese cuisine, are not often to be found in Washington, D.C.
Is that what we ate?
He covers his mouth and runs for the bathroom.
Why would I have murdered all of the others?
Obviously, in case Mr. Buddy had told them about you.
So it has nothing at all to do with this great nuclear physicist and Colonel Mustard's work on the new fusion bomb.
No. Communism was just a red herring. Mrs. Peacock did it all.
There's no proof.
Well, the gun is missing. Gentlemen, turn out your pockets. Ladies, empty your purses.
The camera reveals Miss Scarlet's empty purse.
Whoever has the gun is the murderer.
Mrs. Peacock opens her purse and pulls out the gun, pointing it at the butler.
I can't do it with that hand. Very well.
That's what she said.
2 fingers. What do you propose to do about it?
She makes her way to the front door.
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing. Blackmailer and his disgusting informers.
But the police will be here any minute. What happens then?
Why should the police come? Nobody's called them.
You mean?
That's right. Now, I suggest that we stack the bodies in the cellar, lock it, leave quietly one at a time, and pretend that none of this has ever happened.
Great idea. I'll leave first, if you don't mind.
Mrs. Peacock uses the gun to wave the other guests into a group.
Be my guest. In fact, I think we all owe you a vote of thanks.
He starts singing in an appealing baritone.
Oh, shit. Hey! For she's a jolly good fellow, for she's a jolly good fellow.
For she's a jolly good fellow.
Which nobody
can
deny. Which nobody can deny.
Nobody can deny.
But she's a jolly... Ooh, I'm just gonna stop.
Yeah.
As soon as the door shuts,
Appealing
Marty
baritone.
stopped singing.
I said it
Am
was
I the
that
only
song.
actual singer in this group?
Yes.
No,
Yes.
baby, I am, but I'm not one of you. I'm dead. All of my characters are dead.
You are dead.
Not
and
the
old.
elderly
Also singing on
evangelical.
Zoom, which doesn't work.
No.
They relax
Yeah, blame
somewhat.
it on technology.
Yes.
That's
At
what
least
it
the
was.
immediate danger is past.
I told you I didn't do it.
But what if the authorities find out what happened?
The FBI will take care of that.
You mean?
My phone call from Mr. Hoover? I work for him, of course. How else could I have known everything about you all?
There's still one thing I don't understand.
One thing?
Who was Mrs. Peacock taking bribes from?
A foreign power. Her husband, the senator, has influence over defense contracts.
Is there going to be a cover-up?
Isn't that in the public interest? What could be gained by exposure?
But is the FBI in the habit of thinking about our multiple murders?
Yes. Why do you think it's run by a man called Hoover?
Exterior Hill House driveway. Mrs. Peacock has her keys out and is getting ready to get into the car. Elderly evangelist steps
Yay.
onto the doorway.
This bitch. Oh, Mrs. Peacock.
How did you know my name?
The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
He whips out a gun and points it at her. Floodlights engage and cops pour
Yeah.
the yard.
Whip it out. Okay, take her away.
Take your hands off me! I'm a senator's wife!
Summon up the best Karen she can.
The front door opens and the guests, with Wadsworth at their head, pour out onto the porch.
Wadsworth, we got her.
You see, like the Mounties, we always get our man.
Mrs.
Yeah, you're a
Peacock was a man?
Wadsworth slaps him. Then Colonel Mustard does the same.
Would anyone care for fruit or dessert?
The camera freezes. But here's what really happened. Interior, ground floor of the hall. Wadsworth switches on the lights, like in the other two endings.
Sorry, didn't mean to frighten anyone.
You're a bit late for that.
Then there were 3 more murders.
So who did
it?
Wadsworth starts striding away.
Let's consider each murder one by one. Professor Plum, you knew Mr. Body was still alive. Even psychiatrists can tell the difference between patients who are alive or dead. You fired the gun at him in the dark and missed, so you pretended he was dead. That's how you were able to kill him later unobserved.
That's right. He was the missing person in the kitchen after we found Cook dead.
But he was with us in the billiard room when we found Yvette screaming. If that's when the cook was killed, how did he do it?
I didn't.
You don't expect us to believe that, do you?
I expect you to believe it. You killed the cook. She used to be your cook, and she informed on you to Mr. Body.
Interior, ground floor, dining room.
What?
Wadsworth enters. The guests stay around the door from the hall.
You made one fatal mistake.
He sits in the spot Mrs. Peacock occupied during dinner.
Sitting here at dinner, Mrs. Peacock told us she was eating one of her favorite recipes. And monkey's brains, though popular in Cantonese cuisine, are unlikely to be found in Washington, D.C.
Interior, ground floor, the hall. The party re-enters the hall from the dining room.
Colonel, You've got to...
Yeah, sorry, you cut out.
Oh, I said Colonel Mustard when we saw the motorist at the front door.
Cut to a flashback. At the inside of their huddle when the motorists arrived. The following happens as Wadsworth describes them.
You took the key to the weapons cupboard out of my pocket, then you suggested that we all split up. You separated from Miss Scarlet, crossed the hall, opened the cupboard, took the wrench, ran to the conservatory, entered the lounge through the secret passage, killed the motorist with a blow on the head.
Cut to interior, ground floor, the lounge. The present in the lounge.
Like that!
He strides into the hall. Interior, the ground floor, the hall.
This is incredible.
Not so incredible as what happened next.
He starts up the stairs.
After we all split up again, I went upstairs with you. Yes, you, Mrs. White.
The butler stops on the landing.
And while I was in the master bedroom...
Cut to flashback of Mrs. White hurrying downstairs.
You hurried downstairs and turned off the electricity, got the rope from the open cupboard, and throttled Yvette.
Cut to the present in the hall.
You were jealous that your husband was shoving Yvette. That's why you killed him, too.
Yes. Yes, I did it. I killed Yvette. I hated her so much. Flames on the side of my face, heaving runs, heaving.
But while you're in the billiard room...
Cut to flashback. The events occurring as the butler describes them.
Miss Scarlet seized the opportunity and, under cover of darkness, got to the library where she hit the cop whom she'd been bribing on the head with a lead pipe.
Cut to the present in the hall.
True or false?
Who are you, Perry Mason?
So it must have been Mr. Green who shot the Zine telegram.
I didn't do it.
Well, there's nobody else left.
But I didn't do it. The gun is missing. Whoever's got the gun shot the girl.
Wadsworth pulls the gun from his pocket.
I shot her.
You?
So it was you. I was going to expose you.
I know. So I choose to expose myself.
Please,
Girl.
there are ladies present.
You thought Mr. Body was dead, but... You thought Mr. Body was dead, but why? None of you even met him until tonight.
You're Mr. Body.
Wait a minute.
He runs to the study door.
So who did I kill?
My butler.
Shucks.
Wadsworth uses the revolver to wave the professor to join the group.
He was expendable like all of you. I'm grateful to all of you for disposing of my network of spies and informers. Saved me a lot of trouble. Now there's no evidence against me.
This all has nothing to do with my disappearing nuclear physicist husband or Colonel Mustard's work with the new top-secret fusion bomb.
No. Communism was just a red herring.
Wadsworth runs to the front door, keeping the revolver trained on the party.
but the police will be here any minute. You'll never get away with this, any of you.
Why should the police come? Nobody's cold.
You mean? Oh my God! Of course!
So why shouldn't we get away with it? We'll stack the bodies in the cellar, lock it, leave quietly one at a time, and forget that any of this ever happened.
Mr. Green takes off his glasses and starts to put them in his jacket's inside pocket.
And you'll just go on blackmailing us all.
Of course, why not?
Well, I'll tell you why not.
He whips a pistol from his jacket and fires. Wadsworth tries to get a shot off, but is far too slow. The butler is hit.
Han shot first.
Good shot, Green.
Wadsworth slides down the closet door to the floor. He looks at the blood flowing out of his chest.
Very good.
Wadsworth dies. Mr. Green stands fully, lowering the pistol. He already looks more confident than he has yet during the night. Mrs. White steps up to him. He points the pistol at her.
Are you a cop?
No, I'm a plant.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Aren't men like you usually called fruits?
Very funny. FBI, that phone call from J. Edgar Hoover was from me.
He steps up to the front door and grabs the handle.
I told you I didn't do it.
He opens the door. Cops pour in. The elderly evangelist, the chief, follows them in.
God fucking damn this. All right, who done it?
I guess I'll try to explain.
It was him.
And her, she did
there was a
with the
thing.
revolt. There was
over there, and you know,
stick involved. There was
The cops
I don't have no
pointing
idea.
their guns at different guests. Mr. Green shouts above the din.
They all did it. But if you want to know who killed Mr. Body, I did. In the hall with the revolver. Take him away, Chief. I'm going to go home and sleep with my husband.
The camera freezes on Mr. Green as he turns to leave, and he and the chief grin. The end.
Yay!
We did it!
Okay. All
Exciting.
right, let's turn this down a little bit so it's more background noise than anything. That is it, everybody. Thank you so much. I guess we'll take about. I'll just go in reverse order from what I'm seeing here. So let's start with Samantha Madison playing Yvette. Give everybody. Playing about 10,000 roles, one of whom is apparently decrepit and elderly. Mona Chase playing about 6 dead bodies tonight.
Thank you.
About
Thank you.
6
Dying
dead
is my
bodies.
game.
Yes.
Thank you.
Our narrator for tonight, Brianna Cardoza. Yes. Colonel Mustard, played by Cadaver Dadio. Mr. Green, played by Luke Seckington.
Come on, Luke.
Professor Plum, played by Sean Watson.
Aw, the card.
Miss Scarlet, played by Jinger Fahrenheit.
Even though she was gone, it's okay.
Mrs. White, played by Liz Davidson. And Mrs. Peacock, played by Kelsi Davis. They bring me on.
And Wadsworth, played by Sarah Rose Jameson.
Maestro, maestro.
Yes. Thank you. Everybody who's been watching, thank you. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
So much
Thank you.
I had a blast.
Applause for
This
everybody who
evening was
donated.
sponsored by alcoholic beverages.
Yeah, and foolishness. All right, so grand total at the end of the night, we have raised $550 for MTUG. I'm gonna keep the fundraiser open a couple of days more before I close it, and then so if you missed out tonight, still plenty of time to donate. But that's it for now. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you to my wonderful cast. This is like I feel like we need to be like
Wonderful?
we need to be like the not ready for like
Facebook.
not ready for Facebook players, something like that. So
Not ready for anything.
no, that's it for
Not
me.
ready for lockdown players.
There we go.
Hey!
Oh, perfect. I'm gonna end this. Y'all have a great night. My cast and everybody watching, thank you so much. Hope everyone's staying calm and cool and collected, and that's about it. I'm gonna go home and sleep with my wife.